Alright, what is up everyone? Hoang Zero here, and today we're going to go over a Nationals tier list for the Digimon TCG card game. In this list, we're going to talk about the different decks that we'll see at Nationals, what I predict to be the most popular decks, as well as the Dark Horse decks, Rogue decks, and we're going to outline their strengths and weaknesses and everything alongside in this video. But Nationals is, as of this video right now, EU Nationals is this weekend, and then North American Nationals are the weekend afterward. So a lot of the North American Nationals will probably base their deck choices off of the EU Nationals, and I know EU meta is very different from the North American meta as well, so it's going to be really interesting to see the different types of dynamics that may be going forward. But to kick us off, we're going to talk about the most popular decks, and obviously the deck that comes to mind when everyone thinks of BT6, especially EX edition, is Gabubon. Gabubon is the most popular deck in the English format, given that it has the ability to one-turn kill your opponent relatively quickly, as Gabubon swings for 3, and then you can Lobo on top of that. You have strong memory, manipulation, Vulcan Hammer, Ice Wall, and Ice Wall is such a broken card. Like, Ice Wall is probably, as of this video, the most broken card in the Digimon card game in the English format. Mega Digimon Fusion is probably the next most broken card, and then when we get to Sonomon, it is the most broken card. But as of right now, it's Ice Wall. Any deck that can abuse Ice Wall is probably going to be really strong. So given that, Blue is just in a really great position, especially going forward. And Blue can also spec into multiple variations. The most popular version of Gabubon we're going to see is more than likely going to be the Rookie Rush variation of Gabubon. However, there's also the Pepsi version and the Ancient version that we'll also talk about in the Dark Horse category. But talking about Gabubon, okay, the Gabubon strengths is OTK potential off bond plus Lobo. Okay, you got memory manip, Ice Wall. Let's see, what else do you have? You also have various forms of board control. Gabubon's good board control. You can tech cards like Rattlestar, Kakumon. So semi-board control. It's not a lot. It's not a lot compared to Agumon, but it does exist to some degree. And you also have good consistency. You have a lot of cards that search your key pieces. You're not looking for evolution lines. You're looking mostly just for your bond and your tamers. So overall, it's a really good deck. Over the course of 8 to 10 rounds, you're probably going to be in a really fantastic spot because the likelihood that you brick is pretty low in the grand scheme of things. Coming in next, we do have Security Control. Security Control does have multiple variations that we may potentially see. There's the more classic Security Control that's a lot slower, and that's the yellow-black running stuff like the wall. Sometimes we'll see also just a lot of emphasis on healing and removal with heavy costed options. So that form of Security Control is going to be a big thing. And we also may happen to see a more mid-range variant that has popped up. I think it's hopped an event, and we're seeing Magna Angemon and Mistymon come into play. I do want to note that Gabubon has good Jess matchup, bad Sec matchup. Okay, so Security Control has a good Gabu matchup, bad Jess matchup, and if you can tell, it's very much so a triangle format, kind of in a rock paper scissors more or less in the most popular category, and that's where I think Dark Horses will really come into play. But Security Control, good sustain. It's good at long games. You want to go into those longer games. Prone to deck out potentially with all the healing and whatnot. As lose con, good control, strong sec blowout. Okay. And recovery plus. Okay, so Security Control is going to be really good. However, that's specifically in the North American scene. In Europe, if you didn't know, Security Control is actually almost non-existent, and the reason for that is because Pepsi, which we'll talk about, Pepsi is such a huge thing. Pepsi and Jesmon both completely whack Security Control right out of the meta. They have a really hard time against it, so a lot of European players have just dropped Security Control in general. It's not to say you won't see Security Control, but definitely you'll see it a lot less than you would in North America. All right, Jesmon. Jesmon is the king of high roll. If you high roll on Jesmon, you are going to win the game flat out, hands down. It's not even a competition. but you're also most likely going to brick on Jessamon more than other decks. The reason for that is because you have to accommodate for the Sistermon ratios, where you're running like 3 Blancs, 3 CLs, and that's 6 slots that could go into your other ratios. And that just really hurts. You also have to fit in cards like Judgment of the Blade, Delicate Plan, Program Shutdown. There's a whole ton of different things. So, best high roll, worst low roll, good sec matchup, bad Gabu matchup. Okay, we also have high deck variation, and what that means, is that high spell variation? We're gonna roll with it. So what I mean by high deck variation is Jessamon, for the most part, its core is very simple. You're looking for the OTK package, Savior, Jess, Starter Deck Greymon, Delicate Plan, etc. Everything else you can build around it, right? So you can run a Goonimon, you can run Geo Greymon, Monodramon, EX Biomon, Program Shutdown, a lot of different tech choices. Jessamon's a super flexible deck that, despite it being very linear in how it wants to win the game, it has little different ways to get to that point, right? So you can afford more control via Atomic Blaster, Geo Greymon, or if you want to go faster than running cards like a Goonimon, Omnimon X is another potential card that you can run as an out to the mirror. There's a lot of really cool things. I've also seen some people trying out Gabubon in Jessamon, so you use that as your level 7. It gives you a little bit more board control. I don't think that's super hypey, but it exists. You can also, Gravity Crush is a huge thing. Gravity Crush being able to enable you potentially end the game 1 turn sooner and to give your opponent a little bit less breathing room is also absolutely great. But yeah, Jessamon is fantastic. Just highest ceiling, period, right? Okay. So we're going to talk about Gabubon. I think Gabubon is probably, if Jessamon wasn't so ridiculous at its ceiling, it would probably be the top 3 decks easily. It would, like, if it weren't for Jessamon being so outlandishly like high roll, it would probably be here, like in the top 3. But because Jessamon is so outlandishly high roll, and the other 2 is just more inherently unfair, Gabubon, it's like hovering in between most popular and Dark Horse. Like it can fall into either slots. So the reason why it would be within the most popular, or just like the strongest in general, right, is Gabubon has the strongest aggro early in the format because Promo Greymon is absolutely fantastic. It's +1 security attack, and you're probably going to survive the check more than likely. So Promo Greymon, high DP for format, good removal, and it has fair or strong matchups into the top 3. Good matchup into popular. So Gabubon in general is just really good. There's a lot of different ways that you can build Gabubon, but the main thing is that A, you're still a bond deck, so Warp is a super viable win con for you. You don't fold to the security as hard as Gabubon does because you have a lot of different ways to win the game than outside of your bond. More than anything else, Gabubon is not your win condition, really, it's Promo Greymon, because Promo Greymon is just super cracked out of its mind. Less reliant on bond. But yeah, so Gabubon is really good. I know a lot of people are going to be taking Gabubon into the Nats format. It's going to be really good. Again, this can go either way. Most popular implies that a lot of people are going to play it. I think Gabubon is going to be super slept on. I just want to define that most popular obviously is what's going to comprise most majority of the tournament. Dark Horse is what I think can potentially take the win, or at least a good chunk of top 8. And then Rogue is like a couple people here and there will take it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do well, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they didn't do well. So, Lilith Loop. Lilith Loop is a really interesting deck. It's one of the harder decks to pilot in the format, as you kind of have to know how to balance between going for the loop, whereas trying to hold off your opponent's, aggro and whatnot. So Loop is a really interesting deck. Loop can potentially do really well into security control because you just loop on them. They're too slow to capitalize on you punishing them. Jessamon, if they brick, it's just an auto free win. Jessamon, if they high roll, then they're just going to send you to the Shadow Realm. And Gabubon, if they can't close out fast enough, then you're in a great position. You also have Gazimon in your deck, so you can cuck a little bit of them. They can cuck a little bit of you because I'm a Doki Betamon. So if you want to stop that, then you're going to have to look into using cards like King Kaku or a Deathclaw or whatever it may be. Even Lady Devimon's inheritable source skill that pops level 3 every time you use an option. But in the grand scheme of things, Lilith Loop looks like a very good contender. So the pros and cons of Lilith Loop: good long game, combo is high chance to win, good sec matchup, Jess is coin flip. Gabu can be easy. Gabu's kind of like coin flippy too. Gabu coin flip. Okay. But yeah, just in general, harder deck to play. Yeah, but just in general, Loop, if you're a good Loop pilot, I think is a really strong contender. Just overall, I wouldn't be surprised if Loop does relatively well, especially now that Loop has access to Analog Boy. What Analog Boy does is not only it accelerates the deck's win con, fills your trash, gets you combo pieces, but also whenever your Digimon pops, like say you ram something in, then you can profit Analog Boy and give you a little bit more recursion, a little bit more stability, and that's really great overall. Next, we have Pepsi. I didn't know what image to use, like I'm not going to use starter deck tie, so I just used a can of Pepsi. A Pepsi is Gabubon that uses starter deck tie, that gives you plus 1000 DP. On your turn, it's a red tamer, and then use Delicate Plant. And the purpose of Pepsi is that it gives you a better security control matchup. So normally, Gabubon, they face security control, and they get blown up by a Wyvern's Breath, Ironcladed Onslaught, and something along those lines. And Pepsi, with Delicate Plant, means you're just safe. It can't hurt you. The issue with Pepsi and why it's not going to be by default the best deck in the format is that Pepsi has to run a clunky engine inherently. So if you play into, say, Jesmon or play into Mirror Gabubon, then sometimes your Pepsi engine just doesn't do you anything. And that can hurt you in the long run. It hurts your consistency overall because that's more bricks you're running in your deck. So it is the brickier version of Gabubon, but it's also the Gabubon... It's a Gabubon deck with the best matchup into security control, so take that as you will. So, it's brickier than Gabu, Rookie Rush, better sec matchup. You also have high sec kill threshold because you're running cards like Lightning Joust that makes your Gabubon swing for 2 damage a pop. And that's plus 3000 DP and 2 damage each, so that's an 18,000 Gabubon that does 2 damage and it's immune to security, and you're probably gonna win the game off of that. So, okay, next, Titamon. Titamon's a really interesting deck. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Titamon in general, but Titamon on paper has the OTK potential. It has good recursion value because Titamon himself revives, Underworld's Calling revives, Ginkaku promotes such a crazy card. Titamon inherently has security pressure. And then we're seeing a lot of really cool stuff. We're seeing that win rate with Titamon, which I'm not going to go in super detail, but definitely Titamon being able to be played for 1 is super, super cool. But yeah, so Titamon, high sec pressure, good removal via Ginkaku and Elec. And then we have good recursion. Promote is Pog. And what else? Good DP thresholds because Titamon with Gabubon hits 16, which breaks over all the bonds. So next we have Ancient Bond. Ancient Bond gets... Okay, so prior to EX, Ancient Bond was like... I don't even think it was on par with Rookie Rush Bond. I think it was just worse. It just was a lot clunkier. It's a lot slower, and just, I don't know. I thought it was a good deck, but it just wasn't Rookie Rush Bond equivalent. But now in EX format with Analog Boy and Ice Wall, I think it's actually on par with the Rookie Rush variant. So what Analog Boy gives to the deck, it not only allows you to play an extra card at the end of your turn because of how Ancient Gabumon interacts, Ancient Gabumon pops, because of the Lobomon effect, thus Analog Boy would proc, and then if you go back to 0, then it's still your turn, and you can play the game still. As a super crack combo. Analog Boy also just accelerates you trying to find your combo pieces, so you can find your Lobomon, you can find your Ancient Gabumon. So not only is the deck getting more consistent, but the deck is also just having a much higher ceiling than it already did. So Ancient Bond is going to be just better in general. I think this is a really slept on deck. I don't see a lot of people playing this over the Rookie Rush variant or the Pepsi variant. I think Ancient variant has a really solid shot at doing well at Nationals. Albeit, again, it is still a clunkier version. It still relies on a lot more combo pieces. You have to see more things, but definitely don't write it out. And then Musketeer. Oh, wait, I need to write the points for Ancient Bond. Okay. Higher ceiling than before. Analog combo. Good. No. What else? What was Ancient Bond is... Yeah, Ancient Bond himself is good. Ancient... Whoops. Itself is good. So Three Musketeer. Three Musketeer is the high. It is the result of Mega Zoo and Security Control kind of like fusing together. You're slamming large bodies. You're getting a lot of good value from it. Playing those options, good control. You can board expand via Zwart, via Nailbone. There's a lot of different ways you can go about the Three Musketeer deck. It's just very high variance in general. Three Musketeer doesn't have any outstanding matchups immediately. It doesn't have an immediately outstanding matchup into Security Control or Jessamon or Gabubon, but it does pretty fairly for the most part. It's very pilot reliant. It's not exactly the easiest deck to pick up. You have to know how to, again, kind of like Loop, you kind of have to know how to stave off the aggro to get to your win con. Your win con involves you having X amount of cards in your trash, again, like Lilith Loop. But Musket in general, it's good removal, has board expansion, slow deck in comparison, or high pilot skill in comparison, good ceiling. Okay, but so Three Musketeers, I don't think it's gonna be like super up there. But it's still performing. It's performing pretty well. People are still seeing a lot of really good results with it, so definitely can't write it out. And then going into Rogue, these are the decks I don't expect people to play because, you know, everything in most popular and Dark Horse is probably a lot more appealing to people. But definitely, I would not be surprised if we saw a couple of people playing the Rogue category, and I could even predict like 1 or 2 ending up in top 8. I wouldn't be surprised. But Diaboromon is the newest addition to the Tier 1 decks, or Tier 1.5, however you want to classify it. But what Diaboromon does is Diaboromon is really fantastic at board expansion. It's just really slow because it relies so heavily on Arata. But what makes Diaboromon now a lot better is the introduction of the EX card, specifically Blocker Diaboromon. So what Blocker Diaboromon does, for those of you who do not know, is that if you hit Insecurity, it creates a Diaboromon token. And that Diaboromon token, well, first of all, you're creating a free token, so like that's just fantastic. But also, its main effect is that it gives your tokens blocker. So you have a level 6 blockers, and if you have English promo Kurisarimon, they now have decoy. So not only can you protect against removal, you protect against battle. So if Bond tries to swing at you, token block. They can't bot deck the tokens are level 6, so Gabubon doesn't work. And so you cuck Bond if you get to that point. And that's just crazy, right? Agubon, if they try to like Gaia Force your main body, cool. Decoy away. It's good stuff. Do note that if hypothetically these board wipes, say Gewalt, then half the tokens will die because half the tokens will protect the other tokens. But tokens that are dying, well, you can only do so much. So you like save half the board, and that's not too shabby. But yeah, overall, I think Diaboromon has really good potential. So sticky, slow, once set up, it goes hard. Blocker plus decoy. If set up, then good matchup into meta. Yeah, like versus Bond, if you set up, if you have level 6 blockers, then like they can't bounce it, so like what are they doing? Security Control, cool, you have decoy. Agumon, cool, you have decoy. Lilithmon, cool, you can paste them on board expansion. Jessamon, I mean it's Jessamon, just don't lose the coin flip, right? Okay. Imperial Ultramon. Imperial Ultramon is another deck that receives buffs in the EX1 format. It receives an entire new line of Stingmon and XVmon cards, including a new Imperial Ultramon. That's all just fantastic in general. My gripe with why Imperial Ultramon I don't think is going to be a dark horse is because Security Control is such a heavy presence in the meta. Imperial Ultramon historically has done really well into Mega Zoo style decks, or just decks that rely on a heavy emphasis on DP, but it doesn't have immunity to options. So Wyvern's Breath, Ironcladed Onslaught, those kind of decks are going to do some serious heavy damage to Imperial Ultramon. So if what I predict to be true with Security Control being huge in the North American scene, I think Imperial Ultramon is going to struggle a little bit. Now we may see adaptations such as the Pepsi package into Imperial Ultramon, although I really doubt it. Because space is so tight in that deck already, it's a lot harder to fit a Pepsi package into a full style deck like that than it is to fit Gabubon, where Gabubon is just a bunch of rookies hodgepodge together. So I think Imperial Ultramon has potential. I don't think it's going to win, unless it's Dan Vang, because it's Dan Vang, but strong, go face, weak to setcon, better consistency, because now every single card in your deck is a combo piece because of the new EX set, and I think that's just fantastic. Access to Ice Wall, because that card is broken. Okay, green. So green's kind of in a weird spot this format because, I mean, it got Aosmon, and Aosmon sucks. Green didn't get it, or an actual SR this set, because Aosmon took it. But regardless, green still got a result. I don't think green is bad. I think green can still, compete to some semi-competitive level. We saw that Gaia Force Gaming Tyler actually got third recently with green. Green OTK, I believe. But yeah, green is still just a flexible color. Being able to grind Gabubon and bop your opponent down to 0 security, it's still very potent. Nidhogg is still a fantastic board wipe. Never sleep on Nidhogg. Just but yeah, green has the tools in its kit to potentially make a resurgence at Nationals. I wouldn't be surprised. Definitely a lot of people would be taken off guard by green, specifically the Nidhogg. I think a lot of people just won't play around Nidhogg. So where is it? We have good sec pressure because Wagamon. You have Nidhogg, and you also have control elements. Now, the thing that keeps green a little bit in check, why I think green's going to struggle a little bit, is that green is one of the brickier decks in the format. What I mean by that is that every single boss card in green is Digiburst reliant. So at any point, if you have to hard slam a Digimon, that means that Digimon, when you get to 6, is going to be a lot weaker, right? Because if you hard slam a 4, then you can't Nidhogg because you're missing all the sources to Digiburst, and it's just like, that sucks. So green is going to, green in like an 8 to 10 round event, especially with Top Cut, I think it's going to be really hard to get good results with green, but I wouldn't write it out because Nidhogg is such an obnoxious card. Craniumon or Black Royal Knights is very, very interesting. On paper, it has a pretty good matchup into Gabubon because you can make Craniumon big enough to hardwall Gabubon. If they can't end the game on Gabubon, then they just really struggle. Technically, everything that's not Wyvern's Breath, Craniumon survives against. Versus Agumon, it's just not even close. Lilith Loop's a bad matchup because they just like board expand on you, and then Jesmon's just awful. Jesmon just slaps the living daylights out of you. It's just a bad matchup in general because of Judgment of the Blade. What ends up really happening, though, is Security Control is probably going to be able to find their Wyvern's Breath because you don't close the game out fast enough because you're playing Security Control. Jesmon is just, it's like a 90 to 10 matchup. It's just really, really bad. You absolutely curb stomp Agumon like it's not even close. They have 0 outs to Craniumon unless they run Wyvern's Breath with some yellow trigger, and that just sounds awful into like every other matchup. And Gabubon's a weird matchup because you really can just make a Craniumon big enough to wall Gabubon, but simultaneously Gabubon can also just outpace you, outboard expand you, etc. So Black Royal Knights is a really interesting position. So big blocker, a good Agumon matchup. Sec matchup good if no breath. Jess matchup and Lilith matchup bad. And Gabu matchup weird champ. Okay. Not only that, Black did receive some interesting buffs. We have Gewalt, an Ironclad Onslaught, and Ultimate Flare as some really good option cards. Zubagon Punch as well. All 4 of those are really fantastic option cards that we can see in the Black Royal Knights deck. Ultimate Flare and Ironclad Onslaught obviously being strong forms of board removal. Zubagon Punch giving you a lot more security pressure as well as a free blocker. You hit the threshold, which isn't super hard. And then, of course, like I said, Gewalt, I think, is a really slept-on card because it's not only a 3 Musketeer card. Black Knights can also use it to kind of like just do a board wipe, really. And if you try to, let's say you try to expand your board, out flood Black Royal Knights, then Gewalt's able to just slap it all down. Granted, it also hits your cards, so it will hit Mechanorimon. And Craniumon says from your opponent's card effects. So if you Gewalt your Mechanorimon, you aren't saving it. So just be aware of that. But overall, Black Knights is a really interesting position. I think people are going to take Agumon, trying not to play against the triangle, because again, Agumon has a pretty good matchup to majority of the triangle. And then what ends up happening is that some quirky person out there, somewhere out in the universe, they end up playing Craniumon, Black Royal Knights, and they'll run into that Agumon player and just make their life miserable. God, that would suck. But as an Agumon player, you just bank on the fact you don't run into Black Royal Knights. Okay. And then we're almost done. Rookie Rush. So, Rookie Rush, I don't see a lot of people talking about this. I think Rookie Rush is definitely something we can't sleep on, especially with Ice Wall in the meta. Rookie Rush also does really well into Gabubon because, I mean, you're going faster than Gabubon. You're just pounding the living daylights out of them. Gabubon in general is just really weak to early aggro. If you play a long game against Gabubon, then they're more than likely just going to outpace you and like OTK you. So you really want to put the pressure on them and force them to bond super early. So that's where Rookie Rush really shines. You can play yellow-green, you can play yellow-blue. You just kind of have to play some semblance of yellow. Yellow-blue has access to Ice Wall and Madoki Betamon. With green, you have access to Terriermon, you have access to Needle Spray, Flower Cannon, Aurormon. Who was the other one? It's the other 5-drop. I can't think off the top of my head. There's Falcomon. Does green have another one? I feel like green has another one, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But anyway, yeah, Rookie Rush. I definitely wouldn't sleep on Rookie Rush. So good Gabu matchup. Bad into control. Outpaces a lot of decks in format. Ice Wall, Abuser. Okay. So we have Lord Knight. Lord Knight, for a lot of people, is in a really weird spot. A lot of people dropped Lord Knightmon as soon as we hit BT6, and then we saw Dan Vang win an entire Evo Cup. Or no, it was a regional. He won an entire regional playing Lord Knightmon when nobody expected it. And we've also seen Lord Knightmon do pretty well in other like smaller events. But Lord Digimon is still the deck that has strong removal, board expansion. It kind of does a lot of things that you would want a deck to do. The issue it being a little bit slower than most decks because it still is a climb to 6 deck and it doesn't have a lot of high impact as say Titamon or Lilithmon do when they hit 6. But regardless, Lord Knightmon is still a threat to be reckoned with. I definitely would not sleep on Lord Knightmon. So we have good board expansion. Okay. Whoops. Good removal. Strong. What is it? Strong top end. Weak impact initially. Can be rushed down. And the last card in the rogue category that we do have coming up is Machinedramon. Machinedramon is the last new deck coming out of EX1 format, and of course there's like EX1 Angels, but I really don't foresee anyone playing EX1 Angels unless you're like hard down bad for Seraphimon and friends. It's not a bad deck. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad deck. It's just I really don't foresee anyone playing EX1 Angels. But Machinedramon is very Mega Zoo-esque, where you're hard slamming a huge body and getting a lot of value. Machinedramon, if it's set up properly, can cuck a lot of the decks in the meta. For example, versus yellow, it can't be deeply reduced. When it would be destroyed, you just trash some sources instead. So versus security control, you can have a lot of longevity. Versus Gabubon, you can really cuck them as well on that department. Versus Jesmon, it just sucks because he's able to just bop you on the head. But, at the very least, you can deny the piercing because it has to destroy the body in order to pierce. So with Machinedramon's ability, you can also stop the piercing. But again, Jesmon's still a really rough matchup, I feel like. So, Mega Zoo. It has Ultimate Connection, which is basically just the black equivalent of Hammer Spark, more or less. But it's a lot more restricted. Ultimate Connection, Machinedra Sticky, and good on play value. Okay. Yeah, so this tier list is very much so what I expect to see at Nats or what you may want to bring to Nats. I think, again, Agumon can really go here, like anywhere in between. I think definitely wouldn't sleep on Agumon. I think Agumon is really, really strong. Honestly, I wouldn't sleep on any deck. I think Digimon is such a diverse game to where you can play any deck and really just get away with it. I think you can take any deck and you can get top 32 relatively easy. I think top 16 is a lot harder. Top 32 is very doable for most decks. I definitely would respect every single deck you expect to face. I don't think there's any one deck that is just flat out the best deck in the format. I think every single deck has some weakness that we do have to acknowledge, and I think Nats is going to be super wild. So either way, do your practice, do your research, and go in and announce with confidence. You know, have confidence in yourself and your deck, and believe in yourself. You know, but thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate this, and just a reminder that in March 19th, March 20th, I will be commentating for Texas Arlington for the Digimon Card Game Festival. So I hope you guys also look forward to that. So thank you guys so much for watching, and take it easy.